Alright folks, welcome. Today's video is all about making bacon, and I'm going to teach you a way to do it in the most simplest form possible so you can do it at home with minimum things required. Okay, so what we're going to do is what's known as a dry cure method. So we're going to use a technique that's centuries old. It involves adding salt plus things like sugar, nitrite, some flavors to cure the bacon, and then we're going to smoke it in our smoker. Smoking it helps by further pasteurizing the bacon, also adding flavor, but the cure is the main thing that's going to make your bacon safe to eat. The reason why we make bacon is we can preserve that meat so it lasts longer historically, but mainly because it becomes such a nice, beautiful, complete flavored product when we actually cook it. So, by adding salt, we're increasing the salt concentration in the meat, we're adding flavor, we're killing any of that big bacteria in there that's part of the curing process, and all round getting a really nice, tasty product at the end of it. So to keep it really simple, you can do your own blending of dry cures. Generally, you'll need to mix salt, sugar, and a nitrite. Nitrite's a bit of a funny ingredient, so most of the time we're using sodium nitrite. It makes curing extremely safe, especially if you're doing it at home. If you don't use nitrite, there is the possibility of Clostridium botulinum spoiling your meat. It's a bacteria that produces spores that are very hard to kill just through conventional curing or even just cooking to a pasteurized temperature. But if we use sodium nitrite, then we're pretty much almost guaranteed to have a completely safe, preserved product. So to make it really easy, I'm just going to use this maple bacon cure here from Misty Gully. Look, this is an off-the-shelf product. You don't need to add anything else apart from this and your pork belly that we're going to be doing today. So highly recommend it. This is how I started out doing my own bacon. Then I moved into my own dry cure recipes and experimenting with different flavors. But this is a beautiful, basic, wholesome, fantastic bacon cure that you can buy right off the shelf, and it makes it really easy. So what I'll do now is we'll talk a little bit about the meat selection, what sort of pork belly I'm looking for to do my bacon, and then I'll give you a demonstration on how to apply the dry cure, and then we'll go through the whole process. It's going to take about a week. This won't be the only day that I'm doing a video, but I'll stitch it all together and hopefully make it nice and smooth for you to follow at home. So, all right, let's get into it. Okay folks, so I've got a nice, pretty much a full pork belly here, really nice looking piece here. The skin's been taken off, so this is what you call a rindless pork belly. You can do it with the rind on, and at the end of the day, sometimes leaving the rind on helps you slice it at the end, but I usually trim the rind off before eating it anyway. So I prefer to just start with the rind off, and that way you're not cutting off any of that flavor that you've developed on the outside of it through the cure and through the smoking process when you do go to cook it. So this is the top side here. The skin would have been on here. This is already a very neatly trimmed piece of pork belly, and there's really minimal that I'm going to have to do here. You can get this sort of pork belly from your butcher, or this one in particular is from Costco, just because they get in pigs that are at a bit larger kill size. So they've got really nice, fully large developed bellies for making bacon. So we're using the belly section here today. I'm not using the loin. The loin is what we use for your shortcut bacon. This is going to make us some streaky bacon. I prefer the streaky bacon. I think adding the fat in the bacon and having the texture of the belly, you just get more flavor out of it than the shortcut. Though if you were to use the loin, it would basically be the same process. You'd just be making your shortcut bacon instead. So if you have a look a little bit side on here, we've got a really nice thick cross section. And look, if I had a big enough bag or a big enough container, I wouldn't even need to trim this at all or cut it up before I started curing it. But we're doing this at home. Generally, you're going to either want to do this in a plastic container, or in a vac seal bag, or even in a snap lock freezer bag. I've done it in all of those, and it's fine. So what you need to do is just work out what size container this is going to have to fit into, and then trim up into sections that are going to match that size container. We want to keep this airtight and hopefully also moisture tight too. A leaky freezer bag of bacon dry cure is not going to be very pleasant in your fridge. So I always just use one of these plastic containers. In this case, this is quite a large belly, so I'll be using 2. So what I'm going to do is pretty much cut this into 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, for our bacon today. So we're going to have 2 sections here that I'm going to take through the bacon curing process. And then I'm making another video, or maybe even just some taking pictures of a cook, where I'm going to actually use this end part here for doing some pork belly burnt ends. So that's going to be used for something different. I'm going to split this into 2, apply our cure, and then vac seal them. And once they're even in the vac seal, I like to then put them in this plastic container here, just to make it really, really nice and safe and secure, and make sure we don't have any leakages in the fridge. So I'm going to cut these up, and then I'm going to explain to you how we apply the cure. Okay, so got one of our pieces of our bacon belly here. Now, I've weighed this. Weight is important. It's going to dictate how much cure we need. The Misty Gully stuff is really easy to use. It's 40 grams of cure per kilo of bacon. So we've got 2 kilos pretty much spot on the dot here. So we're going to use about 80 grams of cure. Now, all you need to do is basically, as if you're dry rubbing, any sort of piece of meat with a general purpose dry rub, you just want to try and apply it nice and evenly and get good coverage on all surfaces of the meat. So sometimes there's little creases and folds like you can see in this belly here. So you want to sort of open them up and get as much into those creases and folds as possible. So it's really just a process of sort of trying to get this coated as evenly as possible. But at the end of the day, don't worry too much about evenness and being too particular about how evenly this is applied. You want to get it fairly even, but what's going to happen is all the salt on the outside is going to draw a lot of the moisture out of the meat as the salt then penetrates into the meat. And so what you're going to find is your dry cure in whatever the bag that you're curing this in is actually going to become a very interesting coloured liquid over time. The other thing is we need to note what the weight of the pork is here, the belly, and that will determine how much time it's going to need in the fridge to cure. So the Misty Gully blend recommends 1 day per 500 grams of meat, or 4 days, whichever is longer. So in this case, we're at spot on 2 kilos. So by that, we're going to just need a 4-day cure in the fridge. You want to also turn it, flip it on its end over end once every 24 hours, just to make sure that it's curing evenly. So that's about as easy as it gets. This is now going to go in a snap lock bag, but at this stage you could put it in a large resealable freezer bag. And I'd recommend, if you're doing it that way, double bagging it just to be safe. You want that liquid not only to not leak out, but you want it to stay in, because that liquid is going to contain a lot of the salt and the nitrites and the maple crystals and everything that we've actually applied to this in this dry rub step that's going to do the curing process. So you want to keep it nice and secure in that container. So I'll shoot back to us in a second after I've put this in a vac seal. All right, folks, bacon bellies cut up, dry rub applied, all vac sealed up in the containers, about to go in the fridge. So once again, you can use a sealable freezer bag, or even just the container itself. But what we want to do is maximize the contact that cure has with the meat as much as possible, and try and eliminate as much air from the container as possible. So if you're using a freezer bag or a snap lock bag, just make sure you squeeze all the air out. You can see we've already got a bit of a reaction with the cure there. where that moisture is being drawn out of the belly. Within about an hour, that dry cure is basically going to become a bit of a sort of a liquid slurry of curing goodness. So anyway, I'll take a video tomorrow or the next day when I flip these for the first time, but otherwise I'm just going to let that dry cure do its job. Okay, so day 2 here, and as you can see, all that dry cure definitely turned into liquid. We're just going to turn these because we're turning them once a day, and you can already see there's a fair bit of colour development there. Cure is definitely doing its work. You can probably see how it's sort of turned into a liquid, and yeah, really doing a nice job. So back in the fridge a couple more days, and then we'll work on smoking them. Alright guys, it's now been about 4.5 days. I got my pieces of pork belly here. I'll just show you one of them for now. So we're going to just take it out of the container here. As you can see, a little bit of a colour change. It's looking really good. You can see it's nice and firm. Now this is the morning. I like to do this in the morning because what we're going to do, take it out of the bag, I'm going to give it a wash, and then I'm going to sit it on a cake cooling rack, and then put it in the fridge until this afternoon when I smoke it. Now we want to wash that brine off because we don't need too much of that brine on the outside of the meat. A lot of what we're going to add for flavour on the outside of the meat is going to come from the smoke, and the brine's done its job. It's gotten into the belly over the last 4.5 days. Now we want to dry it out a bit in the fridge and let a pellicle develop. So what that is the outside of the meat is going to dry out, which is going to make a really good surface to adhere our smoke to. So our smoke is going to stick better and flavour the bacon better. Now technically this is cured right now, so you could actually slice this up, and a lot of old school English style fresh bacon, you'd just slice this and cook this right now. But we're going to smoke it, which will help it last a little bit longer for us in the fridge, as well as add that smoky flavour and a bit of texture and help render that fat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut open this bag. I'll take the belly out, and then you'll be able to see sort of just roughly how much liquid is in the bag. It's not a whole lot, but remember we didn't add any liquid in that bag to start with, so that's all been just drawn out of the meat by the cure. So that's what we're looking at there. I can't wait to cook and slice this. So I'm going to take out the other piece of the belly out of the bag, and then rinse them off, and I'll show you how I set them up sitting in the fridge. Okay folks, so there's the 2 pieces of belly there on the cake cooling rack, just in the fridge. So going to let that pellicle develop. Probably going to come back this afternoon, give it about 5 hours. You probably only need to give it 1 or 2 hours in the fridge uncovered like this. But yeah, we'll give it about 5 or 6 hours, and that suits when I'm going to do the smoking today. So absolutely can't wait to get a bit of smoke on these. Going to be beautiful. Okay, bacon's been in the fridge for a while now, and you can really see the outside of that has dried out nicely. Smoke's going to stick to that really well. Now we get to the smoking part. Now look, you can smoke it in just about any device you want. I'm using my Weber Smoky Mountain, which is a bullet smoker, but realistically anything, electric smoker, Kamado, offset smoker. We don't want to be smoking it too hot. I've got some beautiful peach wood in there because I really like what it does. I'm just going to break the golden rule and open the vent here and show you a little bit how I've got it set up. So some wood chunks on some hot coals, providing plenty of nice smoke there. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that rack and put it straight in the top of the smoker here, and then that's about it. I'll put the internal temperature probe in, and we're just going to smoke it till it hits the right temp, then take it out and put it straight in the fridge, because we really don't want to overcook this bacon. We just want to get it smoked to get that flavour and to get it pasteurised. So anyway, I'll show you what it looks like while we're nearly done. Video before I shut the lid. As you can see there, I've got it on my cake cooling rack. I've just left it on the same rack I had it on in the fridge. It's gone in cold. That'll help the smoke stick even better. I'll put it on fat side down. If it does get a little bit hot on the bottom, I'd rather the fat cook a little bit more than the actual inner side of the belly. If you got rind on, then I would also put it rind side down. Anyway, can't wait to see the color on this, and yeah, I'll show you some updated shots as we go through the cook. Alright, we've been going a couple of hours here. Smoky Mountain's been performing beautifully. The peachwood smoke from Natural Smoke Woods has been teasing me. It's been smelling delicious, so let's have a look here. Oh, I like that color. Color's looking good. Now we want to go for about 145 to 150 internal temperature for pasteurization. Okay, so that one's done. Well done, actually. Maybe shot a bit over, but that's okay. This belly, a little bit thicker in parts, so just going a little bit slower, but anyway, I think what we'll do is probably take it off. I like the colour. Peach hasn't probably coloured it up as much as some woods, but doesn't really matter. The flavour's going to be there. So I'm going to basically pick that up, take it off the rack, and go and put it in the fridge. I just want to stop it cooking right now because it doesn't need to cook any further. It's going to stay in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to do a little slice and seal it up, and then we'll do a little cook up and a taste test. Alright folks, it's the day after. Bacon's been in the fridge overnight. Just want to show you here a bit of a close up on that colour. Really happy with that, looks delicious. Smells nice and smoky. Now, got the black gloves on here, so now we've got a food product here that we want to keep good hygiene with and keep as clean as possible. This will last for a couple of weeks in the fridge if you put it in vac seal. Best thing I like to do is to put about half a dozen slices in a container, in a vac seal, and put it in the freezer. It defrosts in about 10 minutes, and it's a really good way to store it for a long period of time, because you do generally make quite a bit of bacon in one go. Now, slicing, it's obviously a lot easier with a electric meat slicer, but you can get away with slicing it yourself with a nice big long slicing knife. So I've got my brisket slicing knife here. You get fairly nice, thick, rustic, thicker cuts of bacon when you use a manual slicer like this. Obviously the electric slicer, you can get a lot closer cut. So I'm just going to take the edge off here and then cut just a couple of slices, just so we can have a little fry up and a taste test, but then the rest I'm actually going to cut with an electric slicer. So anyway, we'll just give this a go here. And we'll take the outside off. Pretty fatty part, this part. And see how good my slicing goes on camera. Does help to have a little bit of force. That's pretty nice looking bacon. Might cut a little bit from the other piece as well, just to sort of compare. This is a pretty sort of fatty part of the belly here. And we'll have a little look over here at this piece. And this is slicing really nicely. Now these end bits here, they're pretty smoky. Generally wouldn't recommend sort of cooking these end bits as bacon, but what you can do is chop them up into little bacon bits, put in a stir fry, something like that, works really nice. So there we go. We'll give them a fry up and off we go. Okay, so another little tip, another little look at that bacon too. Whenever I cook my bacon, I always like to start off with a cold pan. So I'll just put that heat on low and lightly greased. You don't need a bunch of oil or butter or anything because this is just going to cook in its own fat. But yeah, just going to slowly bring that pan up to heat, and that's going to soften it up nicely without overcooking it too much. So I'll swing back in a minute. So I've given these one little flip and it is cooking in their own fat, looking beautiful. Still got it on low heat. Probably turn it once more just to brown this first side again, and then we're good. Alright guys, last part of the video, taste test. May have already had a taste test, couldn't help myself, but this is absolutely beautiful. I'll have another little bite now. I like to cook it till it's nice and crispy. And if you just let it sit there on the plate, after you take it out of the frying pan, it usually crispens up just that little bit more on the outside. So look, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's taken about 6 days to do the whole process, but you do a little bit each day. Might seem like a lot of work, but it is super rewarding. You will not want to eat supermarket bacon ever again. The next best thing is bacon from your local butcher. But seriously, have a crack at doing this at home. You just need a smoker, a little bit of time and care, and you can get amazing results. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please like and subscribe our channel. It would be awesome if you do. Thank you very much. Cheers. That's good. That's good.